it's in the midst of all of this, but I think that the key players are the Nigerian people, and they are seeing the political activities and the movement, the motives and the motivation, and they can tell whether it is a motivation that is driven by inordinate ambition or by a correct desire to help the Nigerian people. But first, let us start by defining who they are. That coalition. It is an association of wild goose chasers consisting of internally displaced politicians forming a dead on arrival political party, better described in the words of Peter Obi as a structure of criminality. That is the definition of the coalition. The second thing is, you will know in Hausa that existed, they say you will know a better Friday on Wednesday. What they have done can be described as hostile takeover. A hostile takeover is a forceful takeover of a party or organization by another organization. Unfortunately for them, what would have qualified for the legality of their conduct would have been if they have the 50% at least, the voting share of the party they are seeking to take over from. But from yesterday's objection by Kachiku, it appears that the hostile takeover is not consistent with due process of law. And that actually talks about, or rather reveal, the personality and motive of the coalition. We welcome opposition, but whatever you do, you should do it well. A coalition that comes illegally to take over another political party in a hostile manner cannot have the interests of the Nigerian people. We will later talk about the capacity of each of those individuals that come together, and we will tell you the difference between this coalition and the coalition that took over power in 2015. If you look at this coalition, so to speak, why I use the word internally displaced politicians is that what is bringing them together has nothing to do with the aspirations of the Nigerian people. It has more to do with their feelings of how either they were treated or how they were not able to get what they wanted, which was the basis for them coming together. For example, in the 2015 coalition, you will not find a case scenario like that of El-Rufai, where somebody is leaving a political party and is saying that I brought evil and I want to take out evil. You will not also find an element like that of Peter Obi, who has scammed the Obidient movement, because what we're hearing is that they say they have been scammed. The contract that brought the Peter Obi and the Obidient movement under the umbrella of Labour Party was that Peter Obi was going to be the flag bearer of the party. They had a clear vision that Peter Obi would be president. Right now in the coalition, Peter Obi has conceded, but has given away his ambition to be the president. So it is a case of 419 from that angle. From the angle of my former principal, Atiku Abubakar, he's leaving a party where a lot of people will tell you they have not seen him display the leadership to fight through until he conquers the challenge. And so people will feel if you run away from a political party when you could have easily stayed and solved the problem, when the Nigerian problem is more than just a political party, what evidence do we have that if tomorrow Nigeria develops a problem, you will run away? So if you look at Amechi, for example, you will know that when Amechi lost the primaries, Amechi never proceeded to support Ashwagi towards the election. So I can keep calling 1, and you will see that their motivation has no correlationship with the feelings and the aspirations of the Nigerian people, but it has more to do with their own thinking and their own plans to achieve what they have always wanted, which is to grab power in the hope that they will enjoy the booties of power.
It is now safe to conclude that Peter Obi is Bola Tinubu's biggest threat. Bola Tinubu is really, really afraid of Peter Obi. Everything Daniel Bwala described here, when he talked about Peter Obi, he talked about Atiku and El-Rufai and Amechi. Hear what he called Peter Obi, of scammer, of 419, and someone who has done 419 to the Obidient movement and has scammed the Obidient movement, trying to cause a rift between Peter Obi and the Obidient movement, saying that he scammed the Obidient movement. But when it came to Atiku, he says Atiku cannot be trusted to manage the country. Amechi, a write-off, and El-Rufai, he didn't even go into much because he just looked at him and said, well, you didn't get a position, so you're angry. He described them. If you remember, as he read whatever Bayo Ononuga wrote out for him to read. He called the coalition an association of wild goose chasers consisting of politically displaced people forming a dead on arrival political party. They're afraid of this coalition. Now, as much as we have our misgivings about this coalition, whether or not it's about a coalition that is looking towards the furtherance of Nigeria, considering the fact that these big players in this political party or this coalition have been part of the people who ruined the nation. However, the biggest strong point is that everyone has come to now agree that a coalition is what is needed to get rid of this APC political party. And you can see why they're afraid. Because now it's not just against Peter Obi right now. You're talking about the coming together of some bigwigs who will now put their resources together, make sure they have offices across the country, and they can then oust this political party. But again, with people with baggages. But just look at the planning for them. Look at the way Daniel Bwala structured his sentences, because you want to use those unsaid stuff to look at what they will use to, cause rift within the ADC shortly. One, he said that the legality of the conduct of the coalition, because they didn't get 50%, he tries to say they didn't get 50% of the supporters or the members of the coalition, of the ADC members, and he says they didn't follow due process. What does that tell you? It says that at some point they will look for people who are disgruntled and they will not use them to cause rift between what? The ADC, as they've done with PDP, LP, SDP. And they will not use exactly the same thing, cause instability within the ADC. But the difference here is that with the ADC, the current chairman, or who's now the former chairman, and the party secretary have all now said, we've been part of this kind of conversation all along, and we've done it quietly. We agree to this coalition, and then we resign, we give the leadership to another group of people. So at this particular point, neither INEC nor Bola Tinubu can have any gainsaying here. So, but one of the things I want to talk about is the way Daniel Bwala described Peter Obi or the coalition is exactly what I think it looks and the reflection of the APC. But first of all, Daniel Bwala described Bola Tinubu a couple of years back. He says even if you give Bola Tinubu 30 years, it would not be able to fix Nigeria. I think a couple of months anyway, but if you just give him 30 years, he wouldn't be able to fix Nigeria. And he has not been able to fix Nigeria. But this same Daniel Bwala really has now jumped ship to work for Bola Tinubu and described his former boss as somebody who cannot be trusted with the economy of Nigeria. Now, I might say I might agree with, because I think Atiku was past his time. But in the words of Peter Aka rephrased, you cannot trust political jobbers and consider them to be patriots. And Daniel Bwala cannot be considered to be one, because he says one thing today and he says he's in the opposition. That's why he's saying that, not because he believed in what he's saying, but because he must say what he wants to say, especially when he was doing this, political punditry, trying to get into the Bola Tinubu's administration. Now he described the coalition again as a political party that took illegally and hostilely did a hostile takeover of another political party. That's what APC has done to Nigeria. They've taken over our legal system, our judiciary, our police, our national assembly. It's a hostile takeover. We're talking about state capture, and he's worried about hostile takeover of a political party. Just imagine that. And the same Daniel Bwala calls Peter Obi a scammer. We're talking about a political party who was rigged elections and all the other off-cycle election. And you're complaining yourself and you're comparing Peter Obi to a political party of destruction in the APC. So we have to focus our attention on the way we think they want to cause rift within the ADC. And the ADC, I believe, might be smart enough to say, this is what is going to happen. We're going to have to treat it quickly before he raises his head. Good things that would have been part of that conversation in the 18 months of meeting without the knowledge of this current political party, APC. If not, they would have caused rift already there. So you can see all of this conversation, all the things that Daniel Bwala mentioned about Peter Obi and the ADC. Some of them you might agree that some of those people who are part of this coalition have been there. They've destroyed Nigeria. They were part of it. They didn't fix the nation. And they're part of it anyway, because if they had done Nigeria right, we would not have gotten an emergence of Bola Tinubu in the way he even arrived, and to become the president of Nigeria. So that's why I'm saying that in certain areas, I wouldn't want to go into an argument with him. But in other areas, to describe one person who we all know that Bola Tinubu is afraid of, and that's Peter Obi, to describe him as a scammer and one that has done 419 to the Obidient movement is some part that where everyone will look at and say, what are you talking about? Your boss, the president of Nigeria, is the one who's coming Nigeria, as we all know it to be today, has taken Nigeria by hostage, seized the National Assembly, seized the police, seized the judiciary, giving contracts to contractors without following due process. And now Nigeria is actually, going down every day. Poverty, insecurity, So let's talk about that before we go about talking about a political party and a political party takeover of another political party. So please put your comments in the comment section. Tell us what you think about what Daniel Bwala said about Peter Obi, calling him a scammer, calling him a 419er who has scammed the Obidient movement. Is that what you think he has done? Or do you really think and believe that the coalition will let Peter Obi, because the most important thing to do for them right now is to say, Peter Obi, you are the most important person of all of us. If we compare you, if you match Peter Obi to Bola Tinubu, versus Atiku, Bola Tinubu beat him. Bola Tinubu versus Amechi, there's no bearing, or El-Rufai. But the biggest following right now politically in terms of movement is the Obidient movement and Peter Obi. It's no-brainer to say we're coalescing. Everyone is actually coalescing behind Peter Obi, and we're giving him the mandate. And let's back him to get this political party out of power, because Nigeria needs rescuing from the hands of APC. So put your comments in the comment section. Let us know what you think. And also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and also recommend this channel to others. I'll catch you up in the next video. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.